The following radio program you're about to listen to is provided to you, the listener, by Inked Geek Studios. Get this and other great shows at inkedgeekstudios.com. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Mind of a Geek. I am your host, Nate, and I am joined, as always, by Brandon.
As always, how you doing, man?
Oh, not too bad. How are you?
Oh, it seems like forever since we've done this.
I know, right? It was, well, yeah, because last week, it's been a couple weeks.
It's been a bit.
No, we had John last week.
Yeah,
It's been a week.
we forgot.
Jeez. How was your week? Good?
Hey, you saw me.
I saw you yesterday. We had wrestling last night, so that was good.
That's my week.
That's your week.
Other than that, I don't exist.
Well, that works. Our guest this evening joins us from the Dirty Bits podcast. Well, let's welcome Tawny Platis to the show. Tawny, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, of course. Thank you for being so patient with like rescheduling. And we were saying in the beginning, before the show started, it was like September you submitted your form. So I think you had something come up, and then I had something come up, and then I had something else come up.
Yeah, that's entertainment for you.
It is entertainment and family emergency things. But
Yes.
anyway, thanks for taking the time to come on. You did mention you were on the road, so I appreciate you hobbling everything together and making it work out.
Oh, definitely. This is not quite the sound that, I'm supposed to have on the huge, but, I got this lovely blanket for it, and I think it's, like, passable. So I appreciate you guys hanging in there with me.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, any port in a storm.
We've had everyone from actual studio setups to calling us from their phone in a parking lot.
Yeah.
So,
The whole range, great.
yeah, no. And then, like, one was on a phone on a rooftop in California. That was a lot of fun, too.
I mean, the parking lot was really the topper.
Right.
Lightsaber moves
Oh, yeah.
while people walk by in the background. Yeah.
No, that was indeed. But no, it's content over quality. That's part of
I
the
like
motto,
that,
I
yeah.
guess. Yeah. But anyway,
That's good to tell people.
speaking of content, you have probably one of the most unique podcasts I've ever listened to. In that
thank
you take parts of history that they don't teach you elsewhere. What's that?
I said, yeah, not so much.
No. So why don't for those that aren't familiar with Dirty Bits, why don't you go over that a little bit and we'll kind of stem from there.
So The Dirty Bit is a show that is a character that I put a character of myself, which is a very casual, very Southern California retelling of the sexy, scandalous, and salacious bits of history that your teacher more than likely left out. Some teachers have surprised me that I've heard from like my listeners. We totally learned that in high school. I'm like, whoa. But it's just kind of those dirty little bits of history that really it seems everybody has that had any kind of impact on the world and society. You have anyone from like Catherine the Great to Schrodinger to Tesla, and they just have these like weird little scandals or sex things about them. And then I feel like it's something that people are deciding factor for what they're going to do in life. Like sex is a big motivator, and it really connects you with those people, and it brings them more down to like a human level, and you can see what they were actually thinking. They're more relatable, and it makes them more human. And I love that so many of them are all connected throughout history too, and are influenced by each other. So it's a very casual retelling character. So I talk about like Catherine the Great Snapchatted her boyfriend, and she was like, "Hey, come over here because I want a piece." So it's in that kind of tone. It's very tongue in cheek, and then I'll say what I think are insightful observations, and really like ditzy kind of Southern California girl voice. So it's a comedy show.
Right.
I think at our deepest, we're all motivated by sex. Really? Right? And Tesla for sure had some real kink.
Right.
Fucked in the head though he was.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, it is one of the most driving things.
I think it's, in our lizard brain. We're all here to
It's
procreate,
why we
right?
it's why we all want to make money.
That's
So
why
we
I
have
sit here
nice
next to you
things
every
and-
night.
Oh yeah.
Sexual animosity, sir. Mm.
But yeah, I mean, it's body image, it's financial image, it's ingrained in everything that we do. It sells.
Well, I mean, statistically speaking, men just do all that stuff for women, right?
Right.
Give
Apparently.
me your money.
We want. So I mean, you've been doing the podcast for a little while now. So
It was a year last week, actually.
Well,
We made our
there you go.
debut last week, a year ago.
nice. Well, happy 1 year anniversary.
Thank you.
So, of the people that you have researched so far, and you've discovered these, dare I say, like deep dark secrets of, which one, if any of them, did you have a prior opinion of before, and then perhaps that opinion was changed after discovering certain things about them?
That's a great question. Yeah, for me, it was actually the Hollywood season. There are some of those, which we just did for season 2, and we're about to wrap up. There was Errol Flynn, Clark Gable, and Spencer Tracy that I was just like, oh, like, because they create just such these amazing pieces of artwork in their film, and they're these incredible actors, and they're kind of douchebags, like, to women. And it does. And, you watch that stuff, and that's very, very relevant. And that's why I didn't really choose to do it. I already decided to do Hollywood, and I chose to take that spin because when I was like, hey, we're doing Hollywood for season 2 next week, the news was all about Harvey Weinstein. And I'm like, oh shit. I'm about to cover sex scandals in Hollywood. Great.
Very topical.
So we kind of, what's that?
Very topical.
Yeah, very, very topical. But as I got into it and as I started learning, I'm like, nothing has changed. Like, if anything, like, things have changed in the sense of that we're talking about it more and we're listening to it and we're taking, people's testimonies, their stories seriously. Before it wasn't even a thing. And you know what I mean? It was kind of just like part of the industry, and it was like this dirty little secret. And it's been going on since the inception of film, like the sexual assault and just the way that men will treat women a lot of times in places of power. And it was kind of shocking to know that it's like, wow, this goes back to the silent film era when this crap started, and like just with these big names too, like MGM, they're doing all this just wild stuff. And it's like, wow, it's been like 100 years and we're still dealing with this crap. So that was a big one for me. And then what was the other one? Albert Einstein was kind of a jerk too. That was another one. He wasn't very nice to his lady friends.
It's funny. History is cyclical. As we go on with every generation, we have to learn over and over again not to do these bad things. But people just like to fuck. And men are shitty.
Yes, we are.
So as you've gone on, have you had a certain character throughout history that you've, I don't know, related to, identified with?
There are some that I feel such a connection with. Like, there was Greta Garbo, because she had this kind of duality to her of this, like, look at me, but don't look at me. Like, I want to perform, but she was really introverted, and she was like very much had like imposter syndrome. And that's something that I feel like I struggle with. I'm like, wait, am I good at this? Am I not? I suck, and I think a lot of us artists are like that. So to see that somebody has that, who was like on top of the world, was really reassuring. I'm like, oh, everybody just goes through that self-doubt and has that kind of stuff. And then Mae West, I really, really connected to a lot. She was so cool because she really came up with kind of what I do with the show, which is like, she's a character. She turned herself into a persona, similar to Charlie Chaplin with The Tramp. But with hers, it was like her personality just like on steroids, like to the max, like if it wasn't for her, there would be no like Elvira, who was the same thing with the character. And that's like what I do. And she was just so cool, and she was so badass, and she was so comfortable talking about sex, and everything was an innuendo. And so for me, doing the dirty bits, like, I'm just like, man, this is like my patron saint. This is my girl. So Mae West has been like the one that I really feel a connection with. But my husband, who works on the show with me, says that I say that about almost every character that I work on.
Whatever's
is that I
exciting.
go, oh my God, I'm like, this is the most relatable subject we've ever had. And he's like, you'll say that next week on the next topic.
So what is it that drew you to doing this in the first place? And in terms of research, how do you choose who you're going to do each time?
Well, I'm a big history fan. I graduated high school. I only have a high school diploma because I was buying a store with my college money in my senior year of high school, and I skipped college and just went right into business after being a child actor and going all through that whole route. And I felt like I really missed out on that, and I felt really just uneducated, despite I did the high school thing and I graduated just fine, but I wanted more,
Hmm.
and I felt like I kind of missed out on that. So I just read constantly, like anytime I can. It's like I love going on like Stanford's website and just like going through their curriculums and everything and just learning. And I had kind of a sheltered upbringing, so there was like all this stuff I felt like I didn't know. Like I was like, oh my god, evolution is so cool. Like I wasn't allowed to learn about this 'cause I'm like, science is amazing. But I really love history, and I really love the personal details of history. And I'm in entertainment. I had sold my business to go back into entertainment. I'm a voice actor. And I thought, well, podcasting, I love podcasts. I listen to podcasts all the time. I'm a voice actor. That'd be a great way to like kind of showcase my talent, have fun. And it just like it kind of took off from there. So really where the dirty bits came from though was me just with my husband in bed at night, and I'd just be like, reading on my off time, like a total nerd, like just going through either like a Wikipedia wormhole or, being on those websites. And I'm like, oh my God, do you know what Catherine the Great did? She had this room and it was like filled with all these chairs that like had like penises engraved in them. Like she was like a total like sex fiend. And he's cracking up. It's because I'm just doing condensed versions, right? Like I'm reading all the academic verbiage and everything. And I'm just doing the casual, like tell my husband making jokes while I'm doing it. And so she was like, yeah, hey, that's not going to be cool with me. But what we can do is like, we can have you come and be like my footman. And then we can just like, fool around on the side. And he was just laughing. He's like, we should totally make a podcast out of this. I don't think anybody's doing this. And I'm like, I think you're right. And that's just kind of how it happened.
It is rare, especially now with podcasting. I mean, I've had the studio running this in about a month. It'll be 4 years since IG Studios kind of launched.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. And it's like everything is everywhere. Right?
Yeah, it's
like,
refreshing to find somebody who has a niche, and it's not to be self-deprecating, but I mean, we do, your standard geeky stuff, Marvel, all that stuff. You can find that anywhere. Ours is the best. But it's nice to find a niche and something interesting that's different from the norm. It really sticks out.
Yeah, because I mean, like interview podcasts are a dime a dozen, like geek variety shows are a dime a dozen, and I mean,
ours are the best.
Right, exactly. It is. It's up to the host to add that flavor and to do that, to be the cream that rises to the top, and not certainly not to take anything away, but having the original idea gives you less shit that you have to wade through to be noticed. So, because there are plenty of podcasters that have great shows. I mean, we know some that have great shows that because they're a dime a dozen and they're in that market, they're great shows that get less numbers than shows that they are better than because they got noticed first. So
exactly. I totally agree with you. I feel that way about Film Roast. Like I wish more people would listen to Film Roast. I'm like, it's so good. And it's like, but it's about film. They discuss film, and it was like you're saying there's so many of them, and that's my like favorite podcast. I love Film Roast. It's hilarious, and I can't get enough people to listen to it.
Well, I will have to check them out, and you should have them come on the show. Get them some exposure.
That would be fantastic. Yeah, I will. I am besties with the host Hannah, so I can make that happen.
Very cool. But yeah, no. So it's interesting and it's fun, and it's certainly fun to kind of have to roll through the punches. But it's also interesting to be in that position where you're like, yeah, nobody's doing this. Like, let's tackle this. Let's go with it, and then you essentially can do anything. And you just go into it and just have a ton of fun, which is, from what I've listened to of the show and from the way you talk about it, seems exactly like what you guys are doing.
It is. It's a blast, and we love it. It's so much fun. And thank you. I appreciate the kind words.
So are there things, like we talked about, the individual people, but as far as things that you've discovered, like how far back in history have you gone? Like who's the oldest person that you have looked into?
Elagabalus.
Okay.
so Rome, I can't remember if he was BC or AD. It's been a hot minute, but it was ancient Rome. And so Elagabalus was the farthest back in time that we've gone so far. We're going to have, after Hollywood, I don't think we're going to be doing a theme again. We're going to just be doing like little mini series. So it might be like, 3 episodes of kind of how we did in the first season, where we had like controversial characters and it was like 3 people and it was just like a little series of that. We're going to do musicians, and we're actually going to go back. I don't want to spoil anything, but we're going to go back to biblical times. So it's going to get all old up in here.
As you've gone through history, have you seen any recurring themes, maybe things repeating themselves, given the way Rome was and the way we are today and our nihilistic virtues?
Oh yeah, it's scary actually. Like that's like there's times like I'm going through and I'm looking at this stuff and I'm reading history and like my eyes are just getting bigger and I'm like, the world's gonna end. Like,
that was
soon, you guys. Yeah,
that was what I was alluding to. Was maybe by the way we fuck, we can determine when we're doomed.
Well, I think it's a lot of just like society's views on fucking. Is a lot of it too.
Yeah.
It's how people approach it and what like the mindset is towards it, and whether you have people that are more, or just cultures or societies, because that's another thing you have to take into consideration. Is there's kind of a Western view of sex, have other cultures' views of sex, and just how you treat men, how you treat women, how you have like the different roles in society. And what I always notice is it comes down to like more of a financial thing more than anything. Like the more you have like a big divide, like a lot of wealthy people, and then, or not even a lot of wealthy people, like a chunk of wealthy people that are really in control, and then you have the masses. And that's when I always notice like shit hits the fan. I'm like, oh, we're there.
Of course. Especially in the world today.
That's the big stuff I noticed.
In our country especially, it seems like we take bounding leaps forward and then 10 steps back. Whoa, we're a little bit too comfortable here. Let's back off a bit.
Right.
So
you're so right.
We'll see where that goes.
It seems to do that. And it's interesting because I like talking about like modern, even just like, like just adult themed things, sexually themed things, right? Like I was having a conversation the other day with a friend of mine saying, because we were talking about porn stars and talking about like a modern porn star, right? And we're talking about how like I was always very entertained by
porn stars,
yeah. But like I was always entertained by.
Aren't we all?
but like the actor behind the character, like how they got started, and because when you get away from like the skeezy, like cheap, crappy stuff, like when you get into like the stuff that like your $30, $40, $50 a month subscriptions, things like that, where the actors and actresses are treated well. Like, these aren't people that went into it because they were drug addicts or they went into it because they had daddy issues. They were people who wanted to have sex for a living.
Pornhub has a great podcast for that.
Do they? But so I was looking at that, right? And like, we're also big wrestling fans, right? And obviously we're movie fans.
You're really painting a great picture of us, porn and wrestling.
Right, exactly.
What a cross-section of humanity we are.
I see no problems here.
But so my parallel there is that you have actors playing roles on a screen. In the same way that with wrestling, sometimes people will hate the performer for the character they play. Like, to tie it to wrestling a little bit, like, neither of us are really huge John Cena fans. I'm sure you've at least heard the name, John Cena.
I do know the name. He's the guy that does a lot of charity work.
Exactly. So in the ring, he's horrible. He does like 5 moves and he's really boring.
Yeah, it's not that we hate him for the charity work.
Right, but outside the ring, the man behind the character is phenomenal. And he does charity work. He does amazing things for children.
Unless you get engaged to him, in which case you have a 100-page contract to sign.
Yeah, don't get engaged to him. Yeah.
And you are noted as a house guest in his house.
Right.
Shit.
But my point, my quick point was, again, back to the whole like how America treats sex. It's like with porn stars, it's the same thing. They're actors and actresses playing roles. There are directors, there are writers, there are recruiters who will recruit them, and they're playing roles. Yet we judge them so harshly. And same thing outside of that with prostitution, right? Like to go to a Carlin quote, like we always do so well, fucking is legal, selling is legal. Why is selling fucking legal?
Why isn't selling fucking legal?
I am so on board with you. And that along with, if we did legalize it, it would be regulated and it would be safer for the women that are in sex work.
Right. Plus, if
I'm all for legalizing it.
If they taxed it, the budget would be balanced in a week.
Exactly.
It's the
exactly.
next step
And
after
to go back
marijuana.
It is. But it's
And to go back to what you were saying about like the porn stars, it's like, we judge them so harshly. And like, it's like, do you want your daughter doing porn? And like, there is a very dark side of that industry, but it's like everybody watches porn. Why is this still something that we say is icky or bad? Or it's like, I'm like, everybody watches porn, whatever your flavor is, whether you want like that really like high quality production stuff on Tumblr, that you can find, or, you're looking for something like else, like, everybody watches porn. Everybody likes porn. Yet we judge people so hard. We judge people so harshly for it. We're embarrassed about it. And it's like, but everybody does it. Everybody's into it.
right.
Whatever your flavor is, it's still porn at the end of the day.
Right.
And that's where like we have that weird thing that I go on about that. Actually, I cover that, and it goes back to here. It goes back to that puritanical start we had in America, where it is that like oppression of sex. That's what our country has been founded on. And then people have ran with it in so many different ways. Like Anthony Comstock, for some reason, got a bug up his ass about people having sex, about anything to do with sex. Like sex is bad. Okay. And that was just all there was to it. This guy didn't want anybody to have any education with it. And it's just, it goes so far back into the history of this country that it's, once you start learning about that, you can see like how far we've come. But at the same time, it's like, damn, that all makes sense why we don't progress. It's like really, really, really ingrained into who we are as Americans, is that like that sexual like suppression or oppression.
You must feel guilt. A little guilt. The underlying guilt all the time.
The only
ingrained
thing
with that. It's
okay,
indoctrinated into us, man.
Right. So Doug Stanhope.
We should get rid of religion.
We should.
Yes.
Doug Stanhope had a great thing about porn because he did a bit on Vices. And he said, the worst thing about porn is it lowers your desire for people who will actually have sex with you.
Untrue.
I think my husband's pretty friggin' hot.
but no, there are arguments to be made for that. And I certainly don't want to be on this for a while, but like there are arguments to be made where like there are unrealistic situations that if it's viewed by teenage boys could give them a perception of, oh, well, if I have a secretary, she'll want to sleep with him. And that can lead to, but that's
true and all, but that's the same as video games.
Well, yeah.
Anybody with some common sense should be able to rise above that and know better.
Right. And video games
I don't disagree with you there with like the unrealistic expectations thing, but like, and I think, like I said, I think it's a multi-layered, complicated issue. There is a dark side to it for sure. And I think there is like, almost more that should be something that I think we live in a world where it's so accessible and there's so much extreme stuff accessible that's not, and it depicts things that are like not pleasurable for everybody. It's like nobody actually does that because it doesn't feel good.
No, it's purely just, like angles and positions.
Yeah, it looks good on camera. That's all.
Exactly. It's all done for camera.
Exactly. And I feel like that's just something that, again, us going back to being puritanical, we don't discuss with our teenagers or anything. Like, and people are like, oh, it's such a hard conversation to have. And it's like, you should be able to kind of like have that conversation, almost direct your kids to I don't know how to do that. I'm not a parent, of course, but it's like there is, I think, like we've always had porn too. Like if you go back into history, like,
well, isn't it like the first
porn since times?
The first device that was able to record full motion video wasn't the first thing recorded on an adult video.
For the time it was considered like racy,
right?
And there was porn got made real quick after the invention of video.
And they decide, and it decides everything. Like right now, your two leading media industries are porn and video games, and they decide everything. Like the reason that Blu-ray beat HD DVD was because porn went with Blu-ray. Like that's what decides it. Same with Betamax and VHS. Porn went with VHS. The industry that sells the most of your product, whichever brand or format they side with, that's the side that's going to win. And since, as far as technological history has existed, it's always this one that porn sides with. That just seems to be how it works. Like, and you always have those areas where it's like, you get the stereotype of like the guy in the trench coat and the big old hat walking into the club, and you don't need to do that anymore. You just open Google. But It's like,
and thus we don't have to talk to our kids anymore. We just hand them an iPad and wait for them to come of age.
And exactly. iPad and you know,
but that's when you find like the weird porn,
Yeah.
and then they're like, "Wait, is that what I'm supposed to do?"
Exactly.
Like,
It's
I
a
feel like
vicious
there's got to
cycle.
be
right.
There's got to be some kind of balance in there. Of
Well,
like,
it's
you know,
interesting,
like
right? Because
okay, porn.
it's interesting because I'm very, very, when it comes to like social things, I'm very, very left. Like, I'm not a big gun guy. I'm very, like, I'm pro everyone having equal rights, like, you know, gays, transgenders, things like that. Like, I'm very left on that end. And that had a point, where was I going? Oh, yeah. So, like you said, it's hard to talk to our kids. I've got 3 kids, but they're young. It's 7, 4, and 18 months. So obviously none of them are quite ready for that sex talk yet. Yeah,
That would be weird if they were.
right. Yet I sat and watched Deadpool with my 3-year-old, and
Oh, wow.
but I was given crap because the only thing that I fast forwarded was the sex scene. So like, I've been.
Well, I
given...
think for most of the dialogue, outside of him parroting it back, he's not going to understand.
Well, no,
what's
but I
going
mean,
on.
like, you know, Deadpool, like getting a bullet in the dick and like things like that. But it's,
Yeah,
like,
you get that on Looney Tunes,
right? But I look at it and I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's funny. It's obviously fake. Like, I don't put that parallel there.
I can't really speak to that anyway, though. I don't have kids,
Right.
so maybe when I do, it'll be different.
So everyone says that the talk with kids is so hard to have, yet you see people have like where they're teaching their 7-year-old how to clean and reload an assault rifle. Like, so you can talk to them about guns, but you can't talk to them about like a natural human activity.
Right.
Well,
and that's
woo.
kind of where I'm on the end of that, where like I don't have children, but I've been in the industry, and like the way I was raised, like in my particular sheltered upbringing, I was raised to be a stay-at-home mom. So it's like I've been taking care of children since I was 7 years old, and I did not stop until I was 25. You know, and I was in the baby industry. I was in like the kid industry. I know like if I was going to have a kid, I would be like prepared, you know, like I have all of that information.
Right.
I know you're never actually prepared. Like, even saying that, I know that you are never actually prepared. But that's something that I've always like kind of leaned towards as well, where it's like I would censor, like, and I'm on the opposite, like respectfully, of course, of that, where it's like I would be more likely to censor violence with my children than I would sex, because
Right.
like sex is a loving, consensual activity between 2 people, you know, and that's something where it's like there's age appropriate sex talks, you know, so it's like what you do with your body in the appropriate time, and you don't touch other people, and like if you want to do that and that feels good, that's okay, but you go to your room and you do that, like, you know, I think it's just age appropriate, and it's continuing the conversation just throughout their lives, and like them being able to come to you at their comfort level, and you being like calm and being able to like be there and be that person. And again, that's just from somebody who's been involved with children for a long
Right.
time but does not have children.
Right, and
So bear in
that
mind,
is best
like,
case scenario, because if I had that kind of
Exactly.
upbringing and my mother said, well, if you're doing that and it feels good, go to your room, son, and have a good time. I mean, given just being around other kids in school, like just anything as you go through life, like you're going to feel shame because that's the world we live in.
Right.
So if I heard that from my mom, I would
Right.
never have an erection again. And you mentioned conservatives a second ago. Well, don't you think that the right wingers, repressed as they are, teaching their kids to shoot and reload guns, that's the perfect metaphor for sex for them?
Well, yeah, because you're shooting and reloading your gun. But and yeah, no, it's and it's interesting that you say that too, because like it's, you know, my oldest is a girl, right? And so obviously I want to make sure that when that time comes, and it's probably going to come earlier than I want it to, like she needs to be educated, right? You know, because because you mentioned the parallel between violence and sex, right? And because I mean, so my son is about 3 years younger, but if they were around the same age, like I would rather get the news like when they're at high school age, right? For example, I would rather get the news that my son got sent home for beating the shit out of somebody than getting the news that my daughter got sent home for having sex in the bathroom. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't know why that sits that way with me.
All of that is bad.
But it's all bad. But I'm saying if I had
Different
to pick
degrees,
a lesser
I
of two
guess.
evils, you know what I mean?
I mean, when it comes to what you want to hear, you don't
I
wanna
mean,
hear.
part of that is a part of that I'm sure is I'm a dad and it's my little girl. But the other part is like, I mean, everybody gets in fights, but, and again, I don't know. I don't have an explanation for that. I guess it's There's more consequence.
Well,
There's more.
I don't think those are really comparable things because it's like you say your son getting in a fight. I thought you were going to say your daughter getting in a fight.
Well, no, I was comparing the fight. Well, I mean, I'm just thinking of what teenagers do in high school.
What if your son because what if your son got sent home for having sex in the bathroom?
Well,
you know what I mean?
That's what you're saying.
I'm not going to say a word.
No, see, that's
Nate, you've taken us to a place where I am going to just
no. Yeah,
out,
see, I don't have a good answer for that.
No, because she's tapping into the
that's
well, no, because I got caught having sex. That's why I used that example.
I got caught too.
No, so okay, so and I've known this since the day my daughter was born over 7 years ago. I try not to be a hypocrite, which means I would have a hard time scolding my kids for anything that I did because I know why they're doing it. My mom and I get along well enough, but sometimes I would get crap from her for doing things I know damn well she did. And I'm like, how can you tell me not to do that? Like she gave me crap for smoking for so many years while being a smoker. And I'm like, fuck off.
I think that's so much like a parenting thing too. And just like your style of it. Cause when you think about the word, like when you think about the word discipline, a lot of people think that's a synonym for punishment.
Right.
And I don't think that it is. Like discipline is just, I'm trying to think of Webster's definition off the top of my head and I can't, but like discipline like has more to do with like a learning experience.
Right.
So it's more about like trying to get them to understand and not punish so much, but like try like, do you comprehend why this is damaging? And like it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy. And again, I don't have kids, but like being able to like to get that across to them and have a conversation. And so often they just want to be understood, I feel like, is like that's what kids want. They want you to understand where they're coming from and just to convey that. Like I completely understand where you're coming from, even saying I've done that too, but you can't do it because of XYZ. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like just more having a conversation with them and like because they're people. You're trying to raise a person. You're not trying to control like a little extension of yourself.
I'm sure given the difference between adults and tiny humans though, most parents will lose patience before they actually come to an understanding with their kid. And especially where it's going to take positive reinforcement and repetition and a real conversation where when you're busy and you're tired and the little shit just won't shut up, but I don't have kids.
Right.
And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying that's ideally what you should do. And I think every parent messes up. There's no perfect parent, but that's like the goal you should be shooting towards.
I think one of the biggest flaws is that I think most, I wouldn't say every, or maybe not even most, but there's an undocumented amount of parents who expect their children to learn from their mistakes, not their children's own mistakes. And I think that's the biggest problem.
Yeah.
But back to the whole point, like, I don't know why that holds different to me. Like there's an old saying that I heard it years ago. And I mean, I guess it could be perceived as being sexist. So, but I certainly don't mean it that way. But it's like when you have a girl, you have to worry about all the dicks. When you have a son, there's only one dick you have to worry about. And
that was an old saying, huh?
It's I've heard it for a long time.
The parable of the dicks.
The parable of dicks. And I don't know. I mean, I guess because I've always had it's difficult to balance it out. I guess.
The dicks?
The dicks. Balance the dicks. I'm trying to catch my train of thought. Stop throwing it off.
I can't help it.
Because it's
so much dick.
Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to envision in my head,
the dick?
What would...
It was there. I had to take it.
What would be a more difficult situation?
I think the thicker ones are probably harder to handle.
I keep like thinking of these things that you're saying too, and you keep beating me to it. I'm like,
but like, which would be a more difficult situation? Like my daughter coming home pregnant, or my son coming home having gotten somebody pregnant?
They're both going to be long-term problems.
That question.
And
my husband and I have talked about this.
Like in my mind, I would think for me the harder situation would be my daughter coming home pregnant, because then if it happens to like if she's a teenager, statistically speaking, he's probably not going to bother with
if your daughter comes home pregnant, at least it's within your realm of control and you can handle it. If the son comes home getting someone pregnant, he's going to be vilified. And you're really gonna have to work around that, you know.
No, that's true.
Yeah, that my husband and we do like the scenarios, like if we
Right.
do have children, like we've been together for, it'll be 5 years next month. And we do the like, okay, what if this happens? Okay, what if that happens? And we watch stuff with kids and we're like, well, what would we do in this situation? And we had said the same thing. We would much rather have a daughter that got pregnant, because then that's under our scope of control there. If our son got someone pregnant, like there is like, that's her body, that's her child, that's her, like you're tied to that. There's really, you're very limited with what the decision factors go in there, as opposed to like, I don't want to get too explicit because I know it's controversial, but with your daughter being pregnant, again, you have much more control over that situation than if your son gets somebody pregnant. Like if you want to go talking preferences, but that's something that you only have so much control over anyway, because your kids are going to make decisions that they're going to make because they're people, and you try your best, and that's all you can do.
Right.
I don't have kids, again.
Right.
I just feel like I have to keep making that disclaimer.
So I don't know how we fully went down this path. But.
Well, we've established that we like porn and we're mystified by parenting. Except for you.
Except for me. Well, I'm still mystified by
we're
it.
We're very thoughtful. We're very thinking about it.
So what are some so like you said you have a lot of experience around kids. So have you in your research for your show, have you discovered anything like either highly inappropriately involving children, or just the situations that you found children in that were like maybe like horrifying or maybe even like scarring if you thought too much about it? Or what are some of the more fearful things that you've discovered in that avenue on your show?
I'm very much, I always say I put the tainment in edutainment. I'm not a historian. I don't have a degree. Like I said, I have a high school diploma. That's it. So I have a show that is very much centered in entertainment. You'll likely learn something. I try to be insightful, but it's as insightful as however you think I am, or however intelligent you think I am. But I don't go that route, because it is supposed to make you laugh. It's supposed to be fun. So it's like, for me, like even just the Hollywood thing and finding out all these sex scandals about these people, and like just the non-consensual things that went on with some of the subjects that I covered, that was horrific enough for me. For me, if I have kids, it doesn't get on the show because it's supposed to be funny. And this season kind of went away from that, unfortunately, just with the subject matter, and I thought it was very apropos with the timing, so we did tackle it.
Right.
But we generally want to stick to comedy. It's not supposed to be something icky. It's not supposed to be something scary. It's not true crime in that sense. Like, I don't have a true crime show, and if that's your jam, that's fantastic. I know it's very popular, but my job is I'm trying to make you laugh, and I'm trying to make you connect.
Right.
And I want you to think about how you and these people can relate. I'm trying to humanize these people.
Okay.
It's supposed to be more hee 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 than like, oh God. And there are parts of that in the show, but like when I do get to them and I really want to cover a subject though, and if they have that, I kind of glaze over it and I go, and he was really icky and did some really douchey stuff, and we're not going to talk about that so much. So I try to kind of bypass that, because I don't have the goal to bring that to the show. It's supposed to be more like tongue-in-cheek and silly, and you're supposed to be giggling at Catherine the Great's penis chairs. You're supposed to be giggling that Tesla like may have kind of had a thing for a pigeon. Hans Christian Andersen never had sex, but he just wanked off constantly and documented it neurotically, and that's hilarious.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
And these people are
I have friends.
And these people are long, long dead. And another one of my favorite podcasts is Fairy Tales for Unwanted Children by Scott Thrower. And he's hysterical. And he has commented like on my show a little bit. And he said, well, you can be dead or you can be embarrassed, but you can't be both at the same time. And when he said that, and when he said that, I was like, that is the motto of our show.
Right.
So we very much go after, like, we're not trying to embarrass like anybody who's currently like I have a tiny show, like, if I did decide to do Paris Hilton, she's not going to know, but like our whole goal is like, it's long gone. We can make light of this. It can be fun. It can be silly. We can talk about it because these people are long dead.
So you
So
avoid
that's kind of where we try to stay.
you avoid things that are more in like you avoid the things that are like of the tragic
Contemporary.
sense.
If
And that
they're
too.
still alive, we're not doing an episode. They have to be dead, you know? So it's like at the most, it's like family members might still be alive.
Right.
And if that is the case, we try to be as respectful as possible. And if something is controversial, we always say, this is what they say on this side, or supposedly, allegedly. I always put those words in if it is something that, you know, is coming from different sides. Like, this is what one person thought, but we're not totally sure.
Right. It's probably safe that way too, because I mean, there's enough shit in the world to make people feel gross and icky.
Yeah.
So
you have a little more freedom.
That's especially right now. You know, like I want it to be something that, you know, makes you think and like inspires like you to go learn. Like, you know, it inspires you to do that. But my goal is to make you smile. My goal is to make you laugh because I think that's neat and sex is fun.
See, I enjoy both sides of that. Like one of my favorite podcasts is The Last Podcast on the Left.
Oh my God, I love that one. Yes.
And,
everybody loves Last Podcast.
And they definitely have moments where some people can't listen, like what do they call it? Like their gold stars or whatever.
Right.
And they do that. Like, I mean, it doesn't really affect me much. I'm kind of desensitized with a lot of things, but
it's all that porn, man.
Yeah. No, it was growing up watching Friday the 13th marathons at like 6.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God.
But yeah, so like I'll hear it, and I mean, really, and that was kind of why I had asked the whole, like, have you discovered anything involving children in your research? Because when I could hear like what was the most recent one, or one of the most recent ones was their Jonestown episode.
My husband and I listened to that one. Yeah.
And my friend that had recommended me to that show was saying that was the first episode that she had listened to where she did not earn her gold star because she could not listen to the recording of everyone taking the cyanide. And for me, like, that didn't get me as much as like listening to Ed Gein and his description of what he did to the little girl. Like like you could describe to me all day what you do to an adult, because most adults are guilty of something.
Mm-hmm.
But once you start harming children and animals, that's when like I'm like I have a hard time.
And I think when you delve into specifics like that versus a group, it's a lot more personal, you know?
Yeah.
Especially for you having a daughter.
Right.
You take that extra step.
Yeah, like I mean, to go to games a little bit, like that video. I don't know if you're a gamer at all, but
I by the definition of, I'm not a gamer, but I do enjoy it.
So there's a video game called The Last of Us. It's a zombie game. I don't particularly love the game, but in like the first 10 or 15 minutes of the game, the guy's daughter gets gunned. Like, she's my daughter's age. And his daughter gets gunned down and dies in his arms. And a video game has never made me cry so hard.
Well, and that's because it affects you on a personal level.
Right, exactly. Because she was my daughter's age.
Relate.
She was blonde. Like, she was like, and it was, I mean, give it up for Naughty Dog in their writing, because they're incredible at writing. But but then again, I can play any other game where I'm like, I got a gun and I'm walking through an airport full of people and just mowing them down, and I'm like, yeah, whatever.
They're just NPCs.
I think a lot of people feel that way. I totally relate to you with like the kids and animals thing. I'm like, you don't fuck with kids, you don't fuck with animals. Those are the innocents.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's like, I totally get that. I relate to that. And I think a lot of people do.
Yeah,
it's like, because you're an adult, you're guilty. You've done something.
Right. You've done something. It even seems to be, because that's always that weird. And I don't say weird in a bad way, but like it's the, or maybe misplaced moral code that a lot of criminals have. Like, if you go to jail, if you're respectful in jail, people will leave you alone. But if you go to jail as a child predator, you're not gonna last a night, and like they will.
Look at Jared. Jared's had a rough time.
Yeah, they'll put you in solitary because they know someone's gonna murder you, because they don't care how many people you killed. They don't even care how many. They might not even care how many women you've killed, or how many banks you've robbed, or how many bombs you've set off. But if you've touched one child, you're fucking dead, because they have, like, everything else is dead to them, but don't fucking touch children. And I suppose something can be said that even other than the child predators, when it comes to other criminals, like, even some of the most hardened criminals, they have the soft spot in their heart for children. So I
definitely.
suppose something can be said for that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I agree.
Like that?
No, I don't know. You know a lot of criminals?
No,
I
but
think that's a
you're
common
right.
discussion, though.
No,
Yeah,
it
I
is.
think
It
you're
is.
probably
I've
right.
definitely heard that before. I see you over there and you beat her.
my wife beat her.
Right off the chain gang, bro.
But no, I mean, I grew up being fascinated by serial killers. You know, and like
Yeah, and quick caveat to that, he and I grew up together, so I definitely was
Oh,
there for a
how
lot
long
of
have
those
you guys been
phases.
friends?
20
almost 20 years.
20
Yeah.
something years, yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So I remember him watching those documentaries and everything in his bedroom.
Yeah.
And here we are in our 30s in his bedroom.
But yeah, no, and I like my mom dismissed me from school to take me to see the Hannibal movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Oh gosh.
yeah. So
My mother took me to the birdcage.
I mean,
We have different ideologies,
yeah.
sir.
I like your mom.
Yeah, and like I watched. I mean, what would have? I mean, I had to have been single digits. I don't remember when it came out. Somebody in the chat can look up if they
Wow,
care.
that's
But
so
well, no,
young.
not for Hannibal. No, Hannibal. I was like, it was 2000. I would have been a junior in high school. But no, I was thinking. But
okay.
like, my mom had. I remember watching Jason Goes to Hell the final Friday on Laserdisc. Yeah. But again, same idea. I watched it with my mom, and this is probably partly why of it, right? And the only scenes that got fast forwarded were the sex scenes. But like Jason ripping a dude, like I remember this to a T. Have you seen the movie? Do you remember the movie at all?
I vaguely.
Okay,
Yeah, like,
so
I know of it.
So
you
there's
know.
a scene where there's a girl riding a guy in a tent. And Jason comes up behind them with a machete, puts it through her gut, slices upwards, and her body peels in half while she's riding the guy. And I remember this explicitly because my mom fast forwarded it because it was a sex scene and then said, "Oh, wait, that was cool," and rewinded it just enough for me to see the machete scene.
To see the boobs going opposite directions.
Right. Because she's like, "That was really cool. I won't make you miss that."
Yeah, that's really cool. You're not gonna masturbate for a while.
But
that is like the most American thing I've ever heard.
no, it
too.
really
Where
is.
it's just
Yeah,
like, no,
that's
no,
true.
but that was cool with the violence right
Very
there.
true.
But sex is better. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and it's such cowboy culture.
It
and that's like
is.
what I've studied, like in the history that I've noticed, is it's just like we are such a country that like loves their violence, and I think it goes back to just that cowboy culture in the West, and like
Yeah.
we like think about the founding of the country. It was a bunch of people that came over here that were like, "Don't tell me what the fuck to do."
Right.
Like that's what we're founded on.
But we're just going to tell you
And
all what
then-
to do.
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
that's
it makes
great.
sense.
So Nate, on that note, where you watched that movie, fast forward to high school, did you have Doc in high school? And did you watch Silence of the Lambs in class?
I didn't have Doc, no, but I mean,
Because he literally gave us extra credit if we counted how many times the word fuck was used in that movie correctly.
Oh,
And he would hand out classical albums, vinyl. Not that I had a record player, but I got some vinyl. Fuck. But I don't know, just strange. Like
right.
a strange movie to watch in high school.
Yeah, I mean,
Silence of the Lambs.
I saw
Yeah.
it long before then, but
No, I had seen it.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm sorry, not Silence of the Lambs. Seven was what we watched.
Oh, we watched Seven in high school.
Oh.
Did you?
Yeah, we did actually. Art of film specifically. So that was one of those like it's only for seniors, so most
Yeah.
of us were 18.
Yeah,
kind
I
of a
watched
thing,
it
and-
senior year.
I remember the movie. That was the What's in the Box movie, right?
Yeah, what's in the box?
Yeah.
The box.
It's one of those ones that you can't watch anymore because of Kevin Spacey, right?
I guess if you want to go taboo like that.
I mean, he's a bad guy in it.
That's
so.
true. He
I'm
is-
still gonna watch American Beauty though.
I think American Beauty would be the only one that would be difficult to watch because he's the creeper.
I mean, yes, but I love that movie. I'm gonna suspend
yeah.
disbelief.
Because we watched that on Movie Busters, like a week before that broke.
Yeah, right before.
Oh shit.
Yeah. And I still haven't
Sucks.
I still haven't seen Baby Driver, which I really want to see.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's a great movie.
So
It is. It's really good.
So I guess, I mean, because that's a question, and it's topical because you covered Hollywood, and obviously, you find out things about people. Do you, when it comes to even modern times or anything, like if you have an opinion on somebody, or if you enjoy somebody's work, do you have a difficult time separating the performer from the art? Like, for example, and this might be the heaviest of the questions, but like, could you still watch the Cosby Show?
No.
Okay.
I can't personally.
Right.
No. Like the Cosby's done. He is one of, if not the most, I can't remember specifically, so I don't want to mess up this fact and give incorrect information, but he is one of, if not the most prolific serial rapists in the history
is it
of
that
this
bad?
country.
See, I kind of stopped paying.
Yeah.
I don't bother with the news much because of all the political shit, so I miss all the
Right.
other stuff that falls in between. So I did not realize that it had escalated to be that bad.
Yeah,
Okay, so
he's terrible, and luckily now the only good thing to come from that is we can realize that his body of work is really just not that good.
No.
It's based upon sweaters. Fuck that shit and Jello.
Right.
Nobody likes a pudding pop. No.
Right.
Fuck that.
Yeah, you never look at Jello the same way. So what about lightening up a little bit? Like for example, like I mean, Kevin Spacey, I suppose, is one that maybe isn't as bad. Or like
on the scale of shit.
Exactly. So like, but one of my favorite modern comedians was Louis C.K.
CK, I knew you were gonna say that.
And like, I love his bit that he does on language when he talks about like the N-word and the word faggot and then the word cunt. Like he has that little bit that he does, and I love it. And he's great, but he's also kind of a dog. Like, so would you still be able to listen to his comedy? Like, and separate that, or
I have a personal. This is so weird. Like, I feel like we're kindred spirits because you're talking about all these things I relate to and like all these topics that like I'm house sitting for somebody, and we were just talking about like half of what we've talked about in the show. We were just talking about last night. And I'm like, forget me. But with Louis C.K., I personally find it a bit different because the way that he apologized was, I felt a way that we could really learn from that, like as a society, is because it was a great apology. He was like, I was wrong. There's no excuse from it. I'm stepping back.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was a man with a kink, and he just didn't really know how to handle it.
He was awkward more than anything, and it's not excusing his behavior at all, but it was like he messed up, and it was wrong. And again, not an excuse, but he is not the same as Cosby.
No, not at all.
He's just not.
Not at all. Like Louis C.K. admitted to it.
Yeah, and I think if you know Louis C.K. or watch his show, awkward. Right? So, I mean,
even
expected.
I mean, even on stage, he's awkward.
Right.
And I think there's something between being malicious and then not being like ignorant too. And the way that he apologized and he said, I'm going to take a step back. I was in the wrong. I talk a lot and it's time for me to listen. And he stuck to that. And I don't know for sure if he withdrew himself from Better Things, that show with Pam Alden, or if they asked him to leave. I'm not 100% sure.
The one that he was supposed to do with his daughter, or about his daughter, the father show that was on Netflix.
I don't think it was that
because there was
it was a film.
Okay,
a movie though. Yeah, like the daddy's little girl or something.
Yeah. That one got booted.
Well, it was a little on the nose for the time.
Right.
But I don't know, like, and I haven't really totally kept up with Louis C.K., so there might be some information I don't have. So I'm very open-minded, and like presented with new information, I'm completely willing to change my opinion.
Right.
But to the best of my knowledge, with his apology, I thought it was appropriate. And if he's sticking to that and he's taking a step back and he's learning and he's reforming, I mean, I think that there is room for people to learn and change. Like somebody from myself, one of those people, like I grew up in an extremely conservative Christian family, and it was like very, very hateful to people in like the LGBTQ community, for instance. And I've said some horrible things before in my life.
Right.
And I am so glad that I was able to like leave that house and like be educated and have very patient friends who were there for me and like were like, no, this is reality. Like we read some stuff here.
Right.
And I feel like that you have people that have like just were ignorant, are a product of their environment. And then they get that knowledge and they're like, oh, I had no idea. I need to change. And then you have people that are malicious and are hiding and they know what they're doing is wrong and they don't care.
Right.
And I personally think Louis C.K. is in the camp of ignorance. Again, presented with new information, I'm willing to change my mind, but as what I have, that's my perception of him. And I could still enjoy his work with the knowledge that I have. Cannot enjoy Cosby, and I did like Cosby, which is sad, but I can't I can't watch it anymore. It's completely ruined.
See, the only other, I mean, and not in a sex crime type way, but just in crime in general, One of my favorite wrestlers in the 90s and early aughts was Chris Benoit. And I don't know if you know the story of Chris Benoit. But,
I don't know the story, but I know the name, and I know there's something.
Oh, yeah. So he had concussion after concussion after concussion.
He was a victim of CTE. I mean, really.
And what ended up happening was and they covered him on last podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And he murdered his son, murdered his wife, and then committed suicide. Okay. And it's not unsolved, but they don't have concrete evidence to the fact. Like, it's just, that's presumed that that's what happened. There are other theories. He still has friends and family that are convinced that he didn't do it. But what it came down to was it was brain damage from concussions, and that's why that was a big reason why wrestling has changed a lot. Like, they're a lot stricter on steroids. They're not allowed to take chair shots to the head anymore. They changed like the steel cages. They're no longer like the steel bars. They're chain link fence, so they're much more giving. So things have changed. Yeah. But he put on some of the most amazing matches. Like, one of the best WrestleMania main events ever was Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero. And you almost have to like take a step back and pull yourself away to still be able to enjoy that, because that man murdered his child.
Right. And I think there's something to be said there, to go back to the violence thing and how it's inherent in our society. I mean, regardless as to whether or not you're just watching that violence on TV, look at what actually being involved in that faux violence caused. So do we really need to push our future children into, I don't know if you're a sports fan. I'm not. But I don't think we really need any of that.
Well, no, that's why I'd rather my kids play esports than.
But at the same time, it begs the question, with machismo and that dying, quote unquote. I mean, how much do we really need to evolve where the male ego gets shrunk, but at the same time we still have violence or don't have violence? Do you see where I'm going with this? It's a multifaceted thing. I don't know. I don't know where we're going to go in the future. Rugby? Yeah, rugby's rugby. A bit much.
Rugby is the answer, honestly.
Soccer?
I totally... What's that?
Soccer?
Yeah, both of those things do not have the same concussion damage.
Wait, I thought rugby was significantly more... I thought rugby was significantly more violent than American football.
It's violent, but it's not... You're not getting this,
Right.
Yeah, no, you're going to get your nose broken for sure. But like, as far as like getting a life-changing, damaging concussion, that kind of brain damage that goes along just time after time, like we've seen in these case studies with football. Like, my husband and I have talked about that. We're like, we wouldn't let them. We're like, no, it's not safe. You can do rugby.
Do you think it's because there's too many pads?
And they just go harder? Yeah, I think that helps.
Yeah, because you're more likely to speed in a sports car with a 5-point harness than you are with a Corolla with a seatbelt.
Right.
So like, the more pads you put on these guys, the safer they feel, so the harder they hit, but ultimately the pads are just pads and they still cause more damage.
Right. And a lot of these guys out on the line are there to do that anyway.
Right.
I think so. And I've read, I'm more of like nerdy type of study girl. I don't watch a lot of football. I don't know a lot of stuff about football, but from like the literature I've read, that's like about what it is. It's actually safer without the pads, which is why the suggestion to rugby has been made, where it's like, yeah, you'll get fucked up doing rugby.
Yeah. You're going to break a bone, but
you're not going to get like concussions that are going to make you change you as a person.
Right.
Really.
So basically what you're saying is we need to look abroad to the gentleman's sports.
Yeah. You're not going to get head trauma where you become like Tom Brady, where he thinks that if he drinks enough water, it prevents sunburn.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Meathead. But I agree with...
Did you see the news when that came out? It was so funny. It was like, Tom Brady says you should do... Like, it was like the...
I live in...
all the little stuff.
We live in New England. We're Patriots fans. No, I saw it.
Yeah. And now his personal trainer is banned from the grounds.
Don't listen to Tom Brady.
Yeah. No, do not at all.
Oh, so funny.
So other than exploring the dark, sexy secrets of history and things like that, you're also a voice actress.
Yes.
And you also mentioned child actors. So you've been doing the acting thing or off and on for a while, or?
Yeah, kind of off and on. My first gig was when I was 4 months old, and then I just went from there. I did a lot of work when I was a child actor. I kind of hit the awkward. And then I had a really awkward 10 years from between 8 and 18, where it was just like nobody's gonna cast the kid with a ton of acne, messed up teeth, with all the headgear, and like I was pudgy, and like it was a rough puberty. Was rough.
Freaks
Puberty
and Geeks
started at
wasn't out fast enough.
It was not. But like, yeah, ages 8 to 18 were puberty for me, and they were really rough. And then so I did some stuff still in my teen years, but not quite as much as I did in my youth. And I had a theater background, dance background, but it's something that I've always really loved. It's something I've always been performing in some capacity and acting in some capacity. So yeah, after I owned a business and I did all that, I kind of got like the business side down, know how to run a business. I sold that so I could pursue acting on a more full-time scale. And with voice acting, it's something that you can do anywhere. It's lucrative, and there's just so much of it worldwide that you just have to, basically get clients. It's very much like running a business, and it's coupled with acting. So it's like this just amazing, perfect career for me that I'm so in love with.
So is there anything that you've done that like what can people find your voice work in?
My big like campaign kind of a thing, like my big claim to fame or whatever. I'm still pretty small potatoes. I'm what you would call like a tier 3, like I'm a working actor,
Right.
Is the Similac Mom Strength campaign, which is for Similac baby formula. So if you've seen like the oligosaccharide, the Similac baby formula is the only formula with oligosaccharide, which is exclusively found in breast milk. There's that one, which
Right.
that was like my biggie that was on YouTube and got like, last I checked, was like 1.5 million views. So if you've heard my voice, that's probably where you've heard it. There's the Fantastic Fitness app. My voice introduces that. There's a promo for that one. And the other one is Picaritin, if you're familiar with like Sawyer products and like their camping products. Like I've done some of their instructional videos for Sawyer Picaritin bug spray, and you put that on. It's really great. And I don't remember that script off the top of my head.
You're lucky you're not from Maine. That's not the way it would sound here.
No.
No.
Do you want to do some Maine voice work?
No, I'm not ready
Get
yet.
that northern Maine drawl?
No.
Oh, well, I have, if you can't tell, I'm from Southern California. I've just worked really hard on my non-regional mid-Atlantic accent.
Right. I mean, I still have some. I try really hard not to sound like I'm from Maine, which I guess.
But you're in Maine, so you can't tell.
Right. I can't. I mean, I don't have the Southern Maine half in the bag.
The Downeaster? No.
Yeah.
Your R's aren't H's?
No, my R. No, I say car, not car. I say lobster, not lobster.
Hitting the fucking car guy. Yeah.
I don't even like lobster. So
you don't like pizza. You really have problems.
No, I don't like pizza.
I'm a voiceover coach as well, and if like you were coming to me to do voice acting, I would say that you have a pretty non-regional accent until unless we like really got into it working together, and if I noticed any little patterns. But like comparatively to like my students, you would not have I would not say that you had any kind of distinctive accent from what I've heard just speaking to you now.
Well, there. I don't sound like a Mainer. I don't sound like a Mainer. Good.
No, I think there's just little things that slip out over time.
Oh yeah, if I get, I mean, I think that's.
And we're doing this right now too, so it's
right. I have.
We're just talking
as level.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
there's stuff that slips out when you get excited or angry that kind of gives away where you're from.
Yeah. Like what was it? There are some actors like when they're playing roles. Who was it? Oh shit, I don't remember. It was who was something about Mary.
Stiller?
No, the woman.
Cameron Diaz?
There. She was in a movie and it was based in it was a cracked video that I saw. But and like she had this horrible accent and then like
Gangs of New York. She's Irish.
Yeah.
Fake Irish jet.
Yeah.
But Gangs of New York.
Yeah, but then there were certain scenes where like she slipped back into her regular accent. So not only was the accent bad, now one of my
I think you can attribute True Blood for a lot of that too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bad accent work in True Blood.
See now one of my
there's the worst. Yeah, totally.
One of my favorite caricatures, and you have to call him that. And it is widely known as one of the worst like voice acting / we just talked. What's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know.
Accent. Like voice accent acting things ever, and it's John Malkovich in Rounders when he plays the Russian.
Oh my God! Now I
The
remember
very
that.
idea of
Yeah.
that sounds bad.
It is so bad. I mean, it is a great movie. Now, here's the thing. Until it was pointed out to me that that was the worst Russian accent ever, to the point that even Matt Damon was embarrassed by it, I thought he was hilariously entertaining. But I like it. I like it when people are over the top. Like, I don't care so much about accuracy or authenticity. Like, I like it. Like, one of my favorite actors is Nicolas Cage. And I like that. I like that modern Nicolas Cage.
Can you tell that I've heard this before?
Yes.
I like that modern Nicolas Cage embraces the caricature that everybody made him out to be.
Oh, totally.
Like
that's how you keep working.
Right. Same with like Christopher Walken. Christopher Walken has become the character that everyone made him by over exaggerating,
Right.
and now he just over exaggerates. And I like that
Exactly.
they kind of embrace their flaws and just turn them up to 11.
I mean, look at RDJ. Same thing.
Yeah.
You make the money being that character.
Right. Well, I mean, Tony
They
Stark
are the
is
character.
RDJ. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. Like, he's the womanizing alcoholic. So,
And that's what I was going back to earlier with like having that, like being a character. Like Mae West was her character. You know, she took it and she ran with it.
Right.
And like, you know, that's like, if you have that, why would you not go with that? I think being a character actor is one of the coolest things you can be. Like, that's what I'm hoping to do in my career, is just be that character actor. It's a blast. It's so much fun. But then people expect you to be like that all the time.
So when it comes to voice acting, like, what are your, I mean, obviously everyone's like, you know, reach for the skies, but like, what are your goals? Like, where do you hope that voice acting brings you? Like, do you want to see yourself voice acting for like animated movies, things like that, or video games, or like, where would you like to see yourself go with it?
I mean, of course, that's the dream.
Right.
Everybody wants to be on Bob's Burgers. You know what I mean? Like, we all do. It's the best show ever. It's, you know, it's this generation's Family Guy is Bob's Burgers.
What? Rick and Morty.
Rick and Morty.
Okay, Rick and Morty. Okay, Rick and
Bob's
Morty too.
Burgers.
Oh, I don't know.
Hey, I don't
Bob's
dislike
Burgers is
Bob's Burgers, but it's
magical.
not Rick and Morty.
I've watched all of Bob's Burgers. I got bored watching Rick and Morty.
That's because you're dumb.
No, I like you.
Ha! You roboted out because you're
Amazing.
wrong.
Yeah, you roboted out. What'd you say?
Because you're wrong. No, I was like, I like you. You get me, with Bob's Burgers. But that's
Bob's
like,
Burgers is great.
yeah, it's incredible. It's just like, you tell there's a certain kind of entertainment performance where it's like you can tell everybody loves what they're doing and they're passionate about it, and the crew gets along together so well.
Right.
And you see that sometimes in like movies, or you can hear it, you can feel it in the animation. It's like, God, that's what you want to be a part of, is that magic right there. You want to be a part of something that everybody's in love with and everybody loves each other. But as far as my career goes, like, I'm just happy to be able to get paid to talk. Like, a lot of the stuff I do is in-house stuff, or it's like, you know, I'm a working voice actor. So the producers, I'm reaching out to the creatives, I'm reaching out to all those people. I'm like, hey, this is what I can do for you. And a lot of the stuff I do is honestly really boring. Like, one of my reoccurring gigs is water filtration instructional stuff. Like, you know, then take the cap off the top and run it through cold water for 5 seconds and then let it dry. And I love that. It's amazing. You know, I get paid to educate people. That's awesome. So like, of course the dream is always to do, you know, the biggest you can to like be on the huge video games. But like, I'm so happy that I can support my family just doing something that I love, which is talking into the mic about anything.
Yeah.
But my long-term goals more are on the podcasting side. That's actually where my career is more headed towards, is being a podcaster full-time and doing the dirty bits full-time and producing other podcasts, producing shows, being an agent for other, you know, people essentially for the shows to get sponsors, you know, being a podcast producer for corporations. Like, that's a huge thing right now, is like corporations want in-house podcasts and they're like, I have no idea how to do this. And it's like, give me your content. I'll write a script. I can get it out there for you, produce it, get you going. And it's cool because it's still so new. Like podcasting, it's 10 years old, but at the same time, so many people don't know about it and so many people are discovering it. And it's kind of like this wild, wild west, like uncharted territory.
Well, it's
and
interesting
there's
because
so much potential.
Because like podcasting as a podcast, yeah, it's about in that decade mark. But like even before that, there were MP3 blogs, like in the form that we know them now, with like the RSS feeds, and where virtually anyone with modern technology can access them. Yeah, but like, I mean, there were the MP3 blogs, things like that. So it's interesting how it's formed, and now it's become something to where on many levels with many podcasts, it competes and it a lot of times beats radio. Like it's the modern talk radio.
Yeah. And that's literally all I do all day is podcast. And you'd be surprised. It is the Wild West. Most of the people I interact with on the day-to-day don't know what podcasts are still.
It's interesting,
Which
right?
is also cool because there's so much untapped potential. There's still so much newness there. It's like, how you were saying, there's so many people you interact with that don't know what that is. And it's like, awesome, there's a new listener, come check it out.
Right.
It's rad.
Oh, believe me, that's when I go into the whole spiel about, me and my buddy have a studio.
See, that's interesting for me because like as in touch with geekdom as I am, I found myself in 2013 saying, what's a podcast? Like I'd never listened to one before because for me, it was always, I crank the music when I have something in my ears, and that's what I did.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was an ex-girlfriend of mine who actually introduced me to The Instance, which is the World of Warcraft podcast by Scott Johnson.
I love Scott Johnson.
So Scott is who got me into podcast. Well, not personally, but like he was my inspiration. And he's been on this show. And I have so many tells that it's kind of obvious that he was my inspiration, but
knowing what you listen to, there's little bits and pieces
I'm a sponge.
You borrow, but everybody does that.
Right.
It's totally fine.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly.
You've borrowed it all and blended it and made it your own.
So really
Nothing
quick,
is
I do
original.
want to touch the conversation's been so flowing. I've been a little rude to the chat, so I want to delve over there a little bit. Let's see here. Religion, keep it in your house. That was from a while back. There was an main comment. I don't remember what that was. Something about having a collection of vintage erotica. That was probably towards the classic porn.
Ooh.
And then okay, so as far as the accents, Robin Williams in Good Will Hunting was apparently a bad accent. I've never seen the movie.
I've seen the movie. I didn't think it was terrible. Was he supposed to have a Bostonian accent? Because it's
probably. And the Amy who made that comment is from Massachusetts, so that's probably
okay.
That could be why. Was it a bad? And
I don't remember.
She's also got Bob's Burgers on in the background right now, so there we go.
Well, we all fucked to Bob's Burgers. Isn't that nice? Christ almighty. I like Bob's Burgers, but it's no Rick and Morty, all right?
Fine.
You're too deep. You're just deeper.
I'm just not going to let it go. I can't.
At least we don't have to wait 18 months between seasons.
18 months? You mean like 4 years? Time and pretension, sir. Can't help it.
So do you have any characters? So like you said, you have like your California Valley girl.
I've been waiting for this. I didn't want to be the one to ask.
Yeah, but do you have?
Yeah.
So do you have any other characters that you have in your head that are like some of your favorite voices to just do on a whim?
Yeah, and it's like as a voice actor, people think we get to do that way more often than we get to.
Well, no, I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah, like more often than not, they're like, we'd like this in a conversational tone that you're selling something, and it doesn't sound like you're selling something. So most of what they want is they want a voice like this, telling you that it's really easy to eat healthy. All you have to do is sign up for this product, and then you can be healthy too. That's most of what I have to do on a daily basis.
Right.
But when I get those chances of landing that video game gig, like the first job I got right out of the gate was a video game, which never happened. So if you're like a voice, what do you say? A hopeful voice actor, you're starting out in voice acting, don't expect that. It was weird. And when it happened to me, I knew it was a fluke. But I'm in a Greek family. My husband's Greek, and I've been very much welcomed into that. And I could do a Greek accent. And that's how this guy found me, was because nobody else could do it, because there's not that many Greeks, to be honest. So I speak some Greek and I can do a Greek accent, and that's how I kind of landed it. And then that kind of turned into, oh, can you do an Irish accent? And I'm like, is it okay if I imitate Conor McGregor? And he's like, that works. So I would just watch Conor McGregor, before I would do something, and I'm like, imitate that. And then I would just get into that headspace and then say that line. But I love getting to do those like over the top caricatures for those like little animated stuff. Like one of the best ones I've got to do has been like the squirrel. I got to be a squirrel in the background of a video game, like a little indie game. And it got to have, you'd be surprised at the emotional range of a squirrel. It was like romantic and love squirrel. And it was like happy squirrel. It was like angry squirrel. And that one was a blast. And the Russian, like the over the top Russian accent is one of my favorite ones. And then my dog has a voice, and a lot of voice actors do this. They give their pets voices and they talk for them. So like they'll be, you just kind of do like the inner monologue of your pet as they're going along. So I have a little terrier chihuahua, and
meanwhile the dog's actual inner monologues. What the fuck is this bitch doing?
No, I'm just picturing like you walking around with like your cell phone and like having like recording a video of like your dog walking around and like doing the inner dialogue while your dog's walking around.
Yeah, I've done that before. And like, you know what I always say is I'm like, Tara Strong does it, and if it's good enough for Tara Strong, I'm not crazy.
So what are, as far as like the over the top caricatures, like what is your favorite one to do?
My over the top caricature is probably the Russian one. It's like the most fun to do, like something like, you sound like a communist from 1950s and you have that very over the top accent. You almost sound offensive, but it's okay because I have Russian heritage. So that one's really fun to do. And then of course, like the over the top, like the Irish ones, like, you get knocked down 32 times. Like that one's always fun to do an over the top Irish accent. Like something like that is really cool, but it's just not a lot of what you get to do.
Right. Can you do German?
A whole lot. Let's think about it. Something like, Diana Kruger, kind of a German accent like that.
Nice.
Something a little bit more lighter.
Do you appreciate how when she does a voice, her whole body changes too?
Yeah, it's like
the face and the mannerism.
Yeah.
Because you're acting, and that's what I tell my free voiceover lesson here. I always tell them in the booth, you need to be acting too. So it's like, like if you're doing a princess voice, everything changes, and you're a Disney princess for somebody's video game, and you get really bright and different than something like possibly Russian or something like that. That's how you get that effect. Right. Otherwise, you're just reading. Right. It's a totally different effect that your audience is going to be perceiving, but. So it is. It's very much like, that's why I like to say voice acting and not voice over, and that's not to like make a dig at anybody.
Right.
But it kind of takes away from that. Like people think like, oh, I'm just reading, and then they're like, oh, Russian accent. Yes, as opposed to a Russian accent, and you put your entire body into it, and it's like Molotov cocktails if you ever watch Venture Brothers.
I like how it has like the Boris Natasha vibe.
Yeah, well, she's immediately missing a cigarette.
Right.
That's all she needs.
Yeah, the cigarette on the long cigarette holder stem. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Natasha, Nadia, I'm called many names.
No, I like it. It's cool. Voice work is always something that, being a big gamer, and especially now that with modern video games, you have actual actors in the roles, whether they be physical, like physical on-screen actors, like Nolan North, who does some visual acting, and he's obviously a big voice guy too. And then you have, Ellen Page was in. She was Last of Us, wasn't she? Yeah. So
she was in Last of Us, yeah.
Yeah. So and it's incredible how that has become its own medium. And you hear people, like, I'm a big fan of Liam O'Brien, who did the voice for Illidan. And I actually I met him at BlizzCon back in 2014, and I have a recording on my phone of him doing the "You Are Not Prepared." And
oh my god!
I love it. It's so, because I'm a big Warcraft guy. I've got the Frostmourne tattooed on my back, and I've been playing since 2004. So yeah, so getting to, and Illidan's one of my favorite villains. So getting to see him in person and doing that, it was absolutely amazing. And
I can only imagine. Like, I'm so jealous right now. Like, I can only imagine. Like, oh my god!
No, it was cool. He's got some D&D thing that he does now. I think it's a podcast that he does. I forget what it's
I've,
called.
I've
Something
know about that vaguely.
something
Yeah.
roll.
They started the show,
or
and then I immediately
is it
forgot about it.
Critical Role.
No, it's not that one, is it? I thought there was another one that got started.
No, I thought
It may be that. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, it's big to the point where like there's billboards about the podcast.
It is Critical Role.
Is it Critical Role? Yeah. Okay, Critical Role. There we go. Amy wants to know why you can't watch them both.
I saw that, and I was just going to let it go. I do watch them both. I just like one more than the other.
She says that
And that's okay.
since she was one of, she said one of like the 4 women at Rockstar, she used to have to do temporary voice stuff, and it was very fun.
It is so much fun.
But yeah, no, it's great, and I love hearing it, and I love the documentaries. I love when you see the person behind the voice, or when you see like the woman who does Bart Simpson, and you never would guess that it was a woman.
Except that she was in Maximum Overdrive, and that's all I ever see.
Yeah, see, I don't make that connection. But no,
She's
It's
so
probably a
cute.
good connection not to have.
but
My favorite Stephen King movie, but it's not the greatest.
and then obviously one of the most notables is Mark Hamill as Joker is a big one, and I
course.
love his just like you were doing his visual, like he's right into it.
It's
when
a
he
full
does the
body
voice.
experience, yeah.
And it's so cool to see, and I
I can't. Yeah.
I love the behind the scenes. I mean, in everything, to tie back to wrestling briefly, things like that. I love the behind the scenes and everything. I talk a lot of the times with wrestling. There's a term in wrestling called kayfabe, which is the whole pretending it's real. And I love that that's gone in a lot of ways because I love to see the performer behind the performance.
Sure.
And I love documentaries. What was the one I saw recently as far as comedy? It was the one about the Dana Carvey show. And you love, again, the actual personality behind that over-the-top personality. And I'm always fascinated by that because I love seeing the talent in action. And I like kind of pulling the curtain back a little bit. It makes it more real.
Totally.
And I've always very much enjoyed it.
It's funny because it ruins it for some people.
It does, but I'm also one of those weird people that like spoilers. So like I don't get things ruined for me. Like I want to know everything. Like if you could give me the script for episode 9 right now, I'd read it, or I'd have somebody else read it and just have them tell me what happened.
Yeah.
But like, because I want to know, because I don't care. And on top of that, there has been a college-done statistical study that shows that people enjoy things more when they know the outcome.
I am not in
Of
that
course.
camp.
Because
I don't want to know. I want to be surprised.
really, yeah. But what if that surprise is bad?
So
But if you go into it knowing it's bad, you hone your expectations appropriately, and you could enjoy the content more.
yeah.
You can tie that to why people are religious if we want to go back to that one.
Right.
We can
That's a
certainly-
spoiler I'd like to have. I take
Yeah,
that back.
no.
But in terms of fandom, like, yeah, pull the curtain back. Don't spoil the end of the movie, but pull the curtain back. It increases and expands the fandom. I want to know more.
right.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's true. But no, I just like being behind all of it.
Can we just reference Benedict Cumberbatch and Penglings?
Bendy Tickle Cumberbunch, yeah.
Penglings.
I love the. He can't say penguin.
Mm-mm. You never saw that documentary he did? No.
No.
He
Did he
voiced
do
a
March of the
documentary.
Penguins?
I don't know what it was, but she'll tell you in a second when she catches up.
Probably, yeah.
But no, he can't say penguin.
No, but I loved Farce of the Penguins. That was amazing. Did you see that?
Was that good?
The Farce of the. Oh my god, it was amazing. You had
I
Samuel.
haven't seen it. No.
You had Samuel L. Jackson doing the voiceover, and you had Lewis Black. Dane Cook was in there. I think Louis C.K. was in there. There was like a gay penguin, and then a penguin that wanted to fuck everybody, and then another penguin that got caught by his wife because he was fucking another penguin, but his excuse was they all look the same. Oh yeah, no.
So different degrees of penguins fucking.
Yeah, Farce of the Penguins is amazing.
So-
Actually,
Fuck of the Penguins.
as a voice actor, you would probably absolutely love it.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Well, is it in the same like kind of? Would you put it in the same categories like Sausage Party?
I haven't seen Sausage. So Farce of the Penguins, they took the March of the Penguins footage and dubbed over it with comedy.
Yeah.
That sounds hilarious.
So
to me. I love that shit.
It's essentially a March of the Penguins parody. But I mean, I don't know. It's like the adult version of like a Pixar movie about animals, only they're real penguins and not CGI. But I never saw
similar to,
Sausage
like those
Party. I
YouTube
heard
videos.
What's that?
The bad lip reading.
Oh, the bad.
Well, there's bad lip reading, and there's also like they'll have like, you know, the fakey like voiceovers with the, you know, actual like documentary footage of the animals. So it's like, you know, they'll have like, you know, the David Attenborough fake voice, you know, and then, oh, and Frank looks like he's going to run his ass off and make it through the snakes. Oh, look at that little man running up the hill like he's Frodo from Lord of the Rings. It's cracks me up.
Just let all documentaries be like that and not be PC.
Yeah.
How much fun?
No, I know. And that's when it comes to accents, that is my absolute favorite is the Australian. My Siri on my iPhone is Australian. Some of my favorite comedians are Australian. Yeah, it's my favorite accent.
That's what are you looking funny.
Like that for?
I'm just listening.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, we don't need to talk about it now, man. I'll tell you why I was looking at you like that later.
Okay. I don't know if I want to know anymore. But yeah, so no, it's I love crazy voices. I love when people have fun with voices. So no, it's really cool. And to have the talent to be able to do that and to take part in that, it's got to be a ton of fun.
It is. It's a blast when you get to do the character work. It's like I said, it's not most of what I do. I'm a what you call a working voice actor, so a lot of the stuff I do is what a lot of people would find boring.
Right.
But the character work is fun when it comes along. It's once in a while, but yeah, you're like your bread and butter is a lot of corporate stuff. That's the stuff that you're getting like the living wage out of, is narrating like ADA compliance videos and
right. Gotta do a podcast where you come up with a couple different characters and you just voice them all.
Yeah, theater of the mind all day.
Yeah,
that's what I'm working on. That's what I'm working on right now.
Nice. Well, hey, I appreciate you taking the time to come on. This was a ton of fun. I cannot believe it's been an hour and a half already.
I can't either. Like I have a short attention span too, and I've had a blast with you guys. You guys were so much fun to talk to. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for the months that it took to like make it happen. You guys were so wonderful and patient.
Oh, not a problem at all. Do you want to give another quick rundown of where people can find you and find your stuff?
Sure. I am Tawny Platis. I'm the host and creator of the Dirty Bits podcast, which you can find at orbitaljigsaw.com or anywhere podcasts are found. And my website is tawnyvoice.com for voiceover needs, voiceover coaching, any kind of marketing coaching. Anything that is in my world is going to be at tawnyvoice.com.
Cool. And how frequently does Dirty Bits come out?
Weekly. We come out every Tuesday. So we will see you next Tuesday.
There we go. It's another one of my favorite words.
Yeah, no, that's a good piece of business right there.
It's the Australian thing.
I always say we'll see you next Tuesday, and then we hope you listen on Hump Day.
Very nice. Well, again, thank you very much for coming on. We very much appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. As for this show, you can find us live. Yeah, I screwed myself up. Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time at twitch.tv/Inked Geek Studios. My phone is dead behind me, so I have no... Oh, you know who's next? Are we on? What is it, the 12th? So then we've got...
If I wasn't lazy, I could pull the calendar up and tell you.
You could. Do you? Yeah, you have access to the calendar too. Yeah,
I totally do.
Anyway,
I am on the show.
But our calendar's up at inkedgeekstudios.com/mindofgeek. And if you like this show and like what you hear here, I am off it tonight. Here.
We have
thank you.
Tristan, maybe, but maybe not, from Coast City Comics, and if not...
Okay, cool. Yeah. Oh, we have someone for the 18th.
Yeah, Tristan.
That's right.
Owner, operator of Coast City Comics.
Oh, yeah, next week was the week off. That's right.
If, in fact, he shows up.
So maybe Tristan next week, maybe not.
And then week after that, September McCready.
But the way that you can know that for sure is by subscribing to our newsletter, which is at tinyletter.com/IG Studios. I need to record something.
It's only been 4 years.
Right. Yeah. But May 18th. Oh, look, Annalisa on top of it. May 18th, not on the calendar. Yeah, so that must not be on my calendar. That must be on your calendar. Anyway, that's fine. We'll figure it out. tinyletter.com/IG Studios will get you all the updated news. It comes out every Thursday. It will tell you the Saturday night guest, the games that Amy and I are doing on Monday, and then the STFU topic for Tuesday. So be sure to subscribe to that newsletter. And again, as I was saying before we got all convoluted, if you do like this show, tell a friend and help kind of spread it around. If you want to support us financially, you know how to do that. You've heard it before, so I'm not going to beat that like a dead horse for right now. But yeah, tell someone, spread the word of the show, and get more people to listen, because that means a lot to us. And definitely, if you listen to the podcast, if you can make it on a Saturday night and watch it live, the chat room is always active. It's always fun to interact with and pick up questions that they might have there, and holler at our guest. It works. So Tawny, thank you again for coming on. It was a ton of fun, and everybody, I highly recommend that you check out Dirty Bits. It is entertaining, and it's from what I've listened. I have it subscribed. I'm playing massive catch up on all of my podcasts. I'm like 4 months behind on everything.
Yeah, well,
so
I listen to 53 podcasts, so it's a problem.
Yeah, I have that one that does like a 2-hour show 4 days a week.
Right, that covers half of your workday.
Yeah, right. So it's a matter of playing catch up. But no, I would highly recommend adding her show to your list of shows that you listen to, and you will hear some things that maybe you didn't want to hear. But interesting thing about interesting people, and it's a good time. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
But anyway,
thank you for having me. You guys are
of course. A big shout out to our chat room. And 90% of me babbling, please talk to me. We are talking to you. Can't leave the project manager reflexes behind. Give him $1. Yeah, give us $1, as Annalisa says. Yes, if you want to know how to give us $1, ask Annalisa.
Mm-hmm. She'll yell it in your ear.
All right, so we'll cut this off, and we'll hang out more for the post shows. If you are on Twitch, don't go anywhere. But yeah, see, if you're listening to the podcast, that's what you're missing out. For Tawny, for Brandon, for myself, and for the rest of Inked Geek Studios, thank you all very much for listening, and we'll see you guys next week. You've been listening to an Inked Geek Studios podcast. For this and other great shows, go to inkedgeekstudios.com.